Prison works like this. Can I bore you for a second? Not because you look like a convict. Although you do have the stripes.
Okay.
Here's how prison works. He's arrested on the 1st of January. 8, 9 months, 18 months later, we're going to take away his liberty. Okay, we're going to take away his liberty, and he's going to learn not to do that behavior again. So what is that action dependent on? Memory? There's a whole list of things, isn't there? We're going to take away your liberty, and you're going to learn not to do that again. Well, we know it doesn't work with drunk drivers. Okay, we know it doesn't work with sex offenders. And we know it doesn't work. There's a long list. That's how the judicial system works, because that's all we got. But here's my latest hobby horse. Have you heard this expression, tough love? I love this one, tough love. It's like military intelligence. What we're going to do is we have a whole set of behaviors called tough love, right? Now, what are they based on? What kind of cognitive skills are tough love grounded on? What memory skills are required in tough love? What abstracting and generalizing and predicting cognitive skills are required? Okay? Did you see what I mean? Think about it. Don't look at how. Think of his brain. Think of his brain with some of those problems. Am I coming through? Okay, thanks very much. Dr. Conry is the only peer-reviewed piece of science. How much it is. They took one day and they interviewed and psych-assessed every kid in British Columbia young offenders lockup. They came back at 24% have fetal alcohol. The doctors very quietly will tell you, it's on the website, I'll tell you about that. The website is www.davidboulding.com. Under papers, it says right there. And it's in the brief, you don't have to write that down. The doctors will quietly tell you over a cup of tea the number should be 40%. The Canadian Penitentiary Service is very concerned because they've been pitching these beautiful courses at all the people in prison and they're not working. And so they started doing little quiet studies, not peer-reviewed studies. Does everybody understand what peer-reviewed science is versus a study? Okay. Peer-reviewed science is the gold standard. Studies are what you do to get through the day to make your boss happy. The numbers are coming back. 50 to 80% of the male penitentiary population in Canada have some diagnosis of fetal alcohol. And you think the police are catching the smart ones? And you're wondering why prisons aren't working? Because the cognitive component that we assume is just not there. You got that? Okay, so now what we know is we have primary behaviors, we have secondary behaviors. You know about 1 to 4, match the brain, stretch your definition of success, identify your assumptions, right? And what was the last one? Change their environment. You got all this in one hand. Well, Diane Malbin is making it very easy for us. She has a chart. And you turn your page over, you'll get this, don't worry about it. There's a chart with a bunch of values, and you're all smart people, and you understand the difference between can't and won't? You understand the difference between structure and control? Structure is flexible, control is rigid, okay? And then she has another page called paradigms. We're getting to the hot stuff in a minute. And you'll take a look at some of that material, and I apologize to the people who don't have it, but you'll get it. Okay? And then there's another page that says values and behavioral symptoms of fetal alcohol. Okay? And then comes the magic. This page here, which you'll get a copy of, has a chart. And it has some primary behaviors here, and the first 4 columns are what we've been doing. And it's not working, but she goes through. If a person does this, we do this. And if you have the chart, take a look at it. Columns 5 and 6, column 5, here's the secondary behavior. Here's a different kind of intervention. So I'll go through it again. You have a primary behavior because the alcohol is taking away a brain cell. Gives you a particular behavior that's never going to change. You have a chronic poor fit that gives you a secondary behavior. Anxiety, frustration, shame. So how do we design an intervention? Well, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a judge, a teacher, a social worker. You be aware of the primary behavior, because that's what's in the police report. That's what's in your you must have children's AIDS reports. What do you call it? You call them call-in reports? What do you call it when someone calls in and says such and such has done something to their children? Notification. That's what's in your report. The primary behaviors you'll see written down in some official form. So you know what the primary is, you know what the secondary is, you know about matching the brain, and so what you do, and if I told you about this, if I told you have to buy this book, you know, try something different rather than harder. I've told you about the external brain, so here we go. You think about how can I create an external brain for this person, being aware of the primary and secondary, being aware of the brain. Now, do you see how that's different? And if you take a look at the chart, Diane has given you some very specific examples. If you have the page there, just take a quick look at it. And because some of you don't have one, I'll just quickly give you some of the different kinds of interventions. Okay, here's one. Slow cognitive pace. Doesn't answer. How many times have you seen that? Okay, normally we give them time test. You have to finish within the time, right? And then we come to the interpretation. We say, well, you're being willful. You're irrational. You knew what the rule was. You could have finished on time. And then what happens? Well, then we punish. What Diane says, well, what's going on? Well, there's a lot of fear and frustration and anger. Okay, that's what he is experiencing. And she says, accept the need to reteach a concept in different settings. Okay, now, you all know this stuff. I'm just trying to reframe it for you. Because at the end of the day, what happens is, we have a tremendous amount of inertia in our world. People in jail. We build lots of prisons. Okay? You're used to doing lots of childhood investigations. You look into families. You know? How much time do you ever sit down with the family and get a family history and realize that this is a multi-generational complex problem? You don't do that, do you? You don't sit down with the family and say, now tell me about your grandmother. Tell me about your mother. Tell me about his mother, his grandmother, and get a picture of the whole thing. And then you get a sense of, this has happened before. We don't have time to do that. The number one complaint everybody has is, there's no services, David. I got no one to refer it to. Well, the reason there are no services, there's a rule in social science called no solution, no problem. Do you understand that rule? So what I'm saying, if you can start thinking about external brain, start thinking about the person's brain, you can start to create solutions. And I'm not saying it's easy. This is really difficult stuff. Do you understand how difficult this is? The bureaucracy you're going to change? Here's a simple example. When I was in law school, it wasn't against the law to beat your wife up. Okay? It took a guy to shoot 9 people at a wedding, and another guy a week later to shoot 4 people before our Attorney General said, we have a zero tolerance. You will go, you will arrest, and someone will spend the night in jail. 1991. What, women became human beings in 1991? Do you see how long that took? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. There are not easy answers. But you go to conferences. You look at the websites. You educate people. Okay? And if you want the best educational tool I've ever seen, it's this videotape with Dr. Connery. She interviews an offender. She interviews the probation officer and the caregiver. And he's a 28-year-old man. It's a 38-minute video in 3 sections. I use it every chance I can. Unfortunately, you need special videos to play in Australia, so I can't play it for you. But I'm going to arrange so that Janet Hemmel will have some. It's an excellent teaching video. And it's the kind of thing you want to show staff, because it's not that invasive. And no one's sort of making you look like an idiot. The Asante Center is on your on your materials lawyers brief. I think it's the best website in the world. And it's got links to everybody. If you want lots more links, type in this. Health Canada, fetal alcohol. You'll probably get 200,000 hits. The federal government of Canada has 147 federally funded projects on fetal alcohol alone. There are probably 25 to 50 PhD students who have done their thesis on fetal alcohol. There's an enormous amount of material out there. I'd like you to just go through at your leisure the stuff in this thing right here. Okay, there's lots of good stuff here for you. The last couple of pages have stuff that you might have to help out with. One of the issues we have is none of us are neuropsychologists with a diagnostic skill, but you got lots of common sense. What's the quickest neuropsych evaluation you can do of somebody? It's really simple. How old were you in grade 2? How old were you in grade 3? How old were you in grade 4? If you get up to grade 8 and you start to get some very big numbers, what does that tell you? There's a problem. Ask more questions. Okay? And so what I've given you in the materials are 10 questions that you might add to your interviewing stack. And I'll talk about the difficult one.